The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
The following is a paid advertisement. The opinions and views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the PSVG podcast network or its employees, except for maybe Coach Mo. Are you looking for an amazing RPG? What about expansive multiplayer? Perhaps a single-player campaign as well. But what if that single-player campaign could be played with friends and not be watered down? Do you think it sounds too good to be true? Well, it sounds like the game dreams are made of. But wait, dreams can come true. Just pick up a copy of Madden 19, available on Xbox One, PS4, PC, and Nintendo... Oh. Wait, no, never mind. Anyway, as I was saying, pick up a copy of Madden 19, one of the nominees for Game of the Year by PSVG. This message was brought to you by PSVG OT and Sports Gamers Unite.
Greetings, gamers, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for games you play on your table and on your television. You can think of us as the figs and pudding of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network. I am one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the guy who is the figgy to my pudding. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Feel like the Grinch, having a wonderful holiday season. And I don't like anything about figs or pudding, so let's just put that right on the top of the cake.
Okay, well, here will be the interesting, before we get called out for being factually inaccurate, are you a fan of, or have you, I'm assuming you've heard of figgy pudding, right?
Of course.
Did you know there are not figs in figgy pudding?
You know, it's one of those things that wouldn't surprise me, like fruitcakes and these things that have words to describe them that are not in the ingredients. So
yeah,
just another holiday trick.
Yep. So it is typically, because we're talking about the British kind of pudding here. So not the American jiggly puddings, but the much more firm, British puddings. Typically it's going to be made with plums and or raisins, some currants and brandy.
Okay. Well, isn't like a fig plum adjacent?
Yeah. It's adjacent. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like necessarily a fig pudding, but figgy pudding, often plums, raisins, that sort of thing.
How's that taste? So it's tasty. Oh God. How's that pudding taste? It's figgy. Notes of figs.
Notes of figs. So granted, we are recording this, so I've talked about on Twitter, or we have talked about on Twitter, that our recording schedule is a bit messed up with the holidays. So we're recording this on December 20th, but this episode will actually come out on the 27th, right?
Christmas has already happened.
Christmas has already happened.
Oh, I feel so much better.
I know, it's over. You don't have to be stressed anymore.
What a great Christmas I had.
I hope it was good. I hope it was wonderful.
It was. So. I can tell. I can confirm. Christmas was great.
Did you have figgy pudding during Christmas?
No. I don't touch the stuff.
So do you have a traditional, Christmas meal? Because I know obviously there's a traditional Thanksgiving meal that many Americans have. Do you have a Christmas tradition as far as food goes?
We're a pasta family.
I can get down with that.
We're not the Italians that do the Feast of Fishes on Christmas Eve. But we do pasta on Christmas Day. Always it's been like that for my entire life. And then now I get the in-laws, so now we celebrate on Christmas Eve at my wife's family, and that's just like a smorgasbord of pasta and wings, and I'm bringing the deep fryer, so I'll be deep frying some pickles and
deep fried pickle question. Spears or slices?
I prefer spears, but really? I've done both. I think it's more finger food. You get a better, I don't know, it's more finger foody than I think chips are.
Gotcha. I like breading a lot.
Yeah, you got to get a lot of the trick is to put a little bit of flour in there before you dip it in the pancake batter. Right. So it sticks, because every time you dump it in the deep fryer, all that stuff falls right off.
Indeed. So do you have a favorite kind of pasta? Because you said you eat pasta. Do you have a specific pasta dish you enjoy the most?
I mean, you could give me sauce and I would just drink the sauce. Like the pasta is just the means to put the sauce onto. I'm more of a sauce guy.
Okay, so like tomato sauce, I'm assuming.
Yeah, or gravy if you're an old school Italian. But yeah, I mean, I like lasagna. My dad still uses my grandmother's meatball recipe, who has been passed for many years. But I still look forward to the homemade meatballs. So yeah, I'm just a big old fan. What about you? Did we even cover what you do for Christmas dinner?
We don't necessarily have a specific tradition. I really want to have one, but every year we've been in a different place for Christmas in the last 4 years. So yeah, we don't have a specific tradition. I would love for it to be something like pasta, but we just don't have anything. So this year will be interesting. This year we're doing turkey and ham. So I know I've mentioned that I've mentioned that we're hosting, and then I'm pretty certain my mother-in-law is struggling with the fact that she isn't hosting. So every time my wife talks to her, she talks about all these other things she's going to do, which in some ways I'm happy about because that's less things I have to cook. But so now the latest was that she's going to take care of the ham. So I'm not taking care of the turkey, but there's also only 6 of us. So we don't necessarily need a ton of food. So I think I was going to do like a full brined turkey in the oven. I think I'm going to back that off and just do a turkey breast in the crock pot, which actually I think is a great way if you have a small gathering, if you have like a family of 4 or 2. Big fan of turkey breast prepared in the crock pot. It is very good. So that way you can use your oven for all the other wonderful sides and things like that.
That's a good idea.
So,
hey, do you want to just do a podcast about things and we can just stop this board game thing? We can include it.
That we could, right?
If we
just every week talk about like whatever random things are going on in the world, our lives.
If we just do the things podcast, Donnie can't get mad at us for talking about video games because those are things. We can still talk about board games and we're cleared. True. People won't make the joke that they're bored with video games.
That's true.
Just be the things cast.
Well, we did one time do that off the rails episode where we talked about nothing gaming related.
We should do more of those.
Maybe
we can do bonus content for Patreon, and we'll call it the Thing Longer podcast.
The Thing Longer. That sounds like a plan. I think that sounds like an excellent plan. But hey, speaking of which, we should probably get on rails because I feel like this might be a longer episode anyway, based off of our topic for this evening. So thanks so much for joining us this week. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter or check out all the things that are posted over on Instagram, also Board with VG. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/boardwithvg. So feel free to give us a 5-star rating over there. We also accept emails, boardwithvg@gmail.com, and use that hashtag boardwithvg on all the social medias. So, we can just check out all the cool things that you're participating in, whether it be games or just life in general. Whatever podcast service you're listening to us on, we encourage you to give us a stellar rating. That is whether you're downloading us on the PSVG feed or the standalone Board with Video Games feed. And if you are using that standalone feed for Board with Video Games, we really, really would appreciate if you do give us a rating over there. Since that feed is relatively new, getting some good ratings there would definitely help us out a ton. And finally, PSVG has a Patreon, and we are thrilled with the support you have given us thus far. If you like what we do and you want to help us continue doing it, head over to patreon.com/PSVG. But the thing we are appreciating the most is when you just listen to us, interact with us, and talk with us. But as a brief shout out to our producers, Coach Hulk, Edwin Kahlo, Devin Tyus, Kevin Austin, Chris M., Joel Voss, Professor Switch himself, and Bonesaw, thank you for your support over on patreon.com/PSVG. That is enough of the housekeeping. Josh, what have you been playing on your tabletop recently, sir?
Oh boy, well, let's just get right into Fog of Love, which is the game I most recently have played on my tabletop. It is certainly not a game for everyone. I suppose that should be said out front. It is a romance simulator game. I don't even know how to describe it.
So real quick, before you get too far, and I don't necessarily want to get us off track too much, because like I said, I think this episode's going to be kind of long. When I say this all the time too, like when I talk about a game, I say, well, it's not for everyone. But isn't that true of like every game? Isn't every game not for everyone?
You're absolutely right. I think we just use it as a thing. It's like a protection of something we enjoy.
So that we're worried that most people may not.
So like, I know I like Fog of Love. I don't want to talk about how much I like it and have someone buy it and hate it. So I go, it's not for everyone.
That's how I use it too. So that's code in the future for future episodes.
No
if you hear that.
No offense, but same thing. So Fog of Love isn't for everyone, but it's for me. It's like a deck. Is it a deck builder? It's similar to a deck builder in the aspect that you are drawing cards into your hand. But all these cards are relationship situations. So Fog of Love is, well, I'll call it a relationship simulator because I think that's right. And essentially, when you start the game, you are choosing a person. You can pick up male or female, and you can. It's a 2-player game only, and then your co-player, because it's a cooperative game, is either a male or a female. So it works with any gender couple, and well, it is binary, so male or female. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see more inclusion from their expansions, though. So for people who are listening that might be trans, that might be something that comes out. What I really liked about this game was right away, once you open the box and you look at the book, it just tells you don't have to read the instructions right now. This is what you need to do. Turn to the back of the book, and these are the instructions on how to set up the tutorial, which is fitting for our category this week for video games. It really felt like a video game walkthrough in some aspects. So they tell you there's all these decks. You put all the decks where they're supposed to go. You don't even set up your characters yet. You just have, like, one side of the board is where you are. The other side of the board is your co-player. But your character sheet is on the board itself, so you're not necessarily playing separate from that. And what you're doing, or is it? No, maybe it isn't part of the board. Maybe my memory is deceiving me. What you do is you draw the tutorial card. It says right on the top. You read it, and it tells you, draw the next 3 cards. These 3 cards are what you're going to use to do this and that. And then it's like, continue doing this until you see the next green card. It's already right there because you just took the cards it tells you. So it's taking you step by step through everything you need to know in the game. There's 30 tutorial cards. The game's 90 to 120 minutes, depending on how long you play. So it's probably a 1-session game when you sit down. The tutorial, I didn't time this, but it was probably an hour and a half. As you do this, every tutorial card is going to explain to you the cards or the card you have and how they're going to affect your gameplay. So as you start with a story theme. In the game we played with, it was like new couple, like you're just meeting. So you start playing the game. What I thought was really cool is you have a trait deck and you have these traits in front of you, but you pick 3 traits out of 5 for your mate, not for yourself. And they pick vice versa. So once you give the person their personality traits, you have to make up a story as to why you picked that for that character. So they're like, remember, you're building a character, you're not building yourself. So they say, name your character, talk a little bit about your character. You also get to pick a profession out of a handful of professions. And then you talk about why you have this profession. And then like I think, well, I'm trying to remember what my wife gave me I took pictures. It's on the Instagram. She's like, one of the things that drew me to your character was he's a slow talker. I'm like, okay, why? She's like, well, he speaks with purpose. I'm like, okay, that's good. He's thoughtful. Like you don't have to do this. The game tells you like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but the intention of this is to build a character you're playing with. As you play through the game, you're going to be drawing cards, and they're scenario cards. Each player has a 5-hand deck, and it starts with the first player. They draw a card, and you're playing the game out in chapters. And there's 3 chapters and then a finale. And when you flip over chapter 1, it gives you a scene, and then it tells you what cards. There's 3 different draw decks, and like one is like casual, one's like serious, and one is stressful. And those are the scenarios inside them. And when you look at the story on the bottom, it will tell you like, keep playing this chapter until you've drawn and played 6 easy cards. It'll give you the icon of the card type. And then once that's completed, then you'll flip to the next chapter and you'll progress the relationship. Sometimes, and they're like, the goal of the game isn't to stay together. You can break up while you're also playing. Each person has destiny cards that you secretly are trying to make your character reach ultimately at the end of the game, which has all these prerequisites at the base. But you don't pick and stick to one until the end. So as you play, there might be a card that makes someone discard a destiny card. And if you match each other's destinies at the end, that's a way to win. And then you can be happy together. If you fulfill your own destiny, you can like win, quote, win the game. There's things in the game that are secrets that you can put on your secret slot. Like mine was, you're secretly a lot younger than you've said you are. And like, if you play a card, there's some cards that tell you to like reveal your partner's secret. Then you read the card and it tells you, if this card was revealed, this happens. If this card wasn't revealed, these things happen. So other things can happen. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're neutral. But if they would like ultimately affect the relationship on some level, like mine was like, if it wasn't discovered, your mate doesn't care that you're younger. But if it was discovered, it might be like, she's mad, she's angry, she's fine. And every decision you make in the game affects this, we'll call it like personality meter in the middle of the board. Mm-hmm. And it's how your character is viewed. So there's a positive side and a negative side. And when you make decisions, depending on the decision, sometimes they make one go down and one go up, or both go down. And those also affect how you score points at the end of the game or are viewed as a character in the game. So it's surprisingly deep, but easy to learn. It'll be interesting to see when we go back to play a new scenario without the tutorial, how well we do. But from where I sat, like the tutorial was perfect. And I wish more games could do something more like that. Obviously, that's not plausible for every game to do because games run differently. But if there was a way for them to include like a tutorial in the game that is played while you're playing the game,
right,
that would be awesome.
So here's my question, and I'm not, no matter how you answer this, I'm not committing us to anything. So, one of the cool things about PSVG's Patreon is we post a lot of things on there that if you're a patron, you get some cool extra perks. There's going to be a video going up. So it'll be up by the time you hear this about me reviewing Spider-Man Hostile Takeover, the prequel book. So, there'll be some cool stuff on there. Is this a game where if I had a copy of it, you and I could play Fog of Love over the internet and post it as the gameplay? Is that a thing we could do?
We could do that.
Maybe
that would be funny.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do that. Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be a good video. I think it could make good. It could make good content, as they say.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I'm not promising that, but we'll look into that.
Cool. Yeah, I would do that.
I would say, but overall impressions, you're enjoying this game so far.
I really think it's great. It's super innovative. I don't think there's been a board game like this ever. The component quality, the game itself is awesome. Like I said, I have the Kickstarter edition. I haven't seen one in the wild to know by comparison how different it is, but I'm pretty sure the only difference is I got like all the expansions in the base game that they are now starting to sell separately. So I think that's the only difference. But yeah, I'm bummed that I waited so long to play it.
Gotcha. So Fog of Love, so far, a hearty approval from you. Hearty recommendation. Any other games you've been playing on your tabletop?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, we got Kyle and I have 2 games in common from PAX that we can talk about at some point. I did notice, though, Greedy Kingdoms is one of them, and it made Tom's top 100 games of 2018.
Yes, I have learned both the games, but I have not played either of them yet. So hopefully in the next, I'll say 2 weeks, I will have them played and we can talk about them.
Yeah, no rush. We got plenty of stuff to play in between them.
It's true. I still haven't even played Fireball Island.
Oh, I'm going to play it again on Christmas, I hope.
How far behind I am. Cool. All right. So then, hey, to change things up really drastically, the game I'm going to talk about today is a game that is probably about as different from Fog of Love as you can get. We actually, if you remember just a few episodes back, we had Dan Machado from Smart Iguana Games on talking about Doce. And we were fortunate enough that Smart Iguana sent Josh and I each a copy of the game. So I sat down, busted out Doce, took the 2 minutes it takes to learn the rules, and sat down and played it. And as a brief recap, because I know we talked about the game a little bit on the episode before, but you basically are sitting, you have a 5x5 grid. Each player has a set of dice. And what the goal is you're trying to, with ideally your 4 dice, have them 4 in a row, and that the total of the dice faces add up to 12. Because when you place a dice, you pick, or when you place a die, you pick which number you have up. They're just normal die, 1 to 6, nothing special about them. You figure out or pick what number you want to put up, and then you put a little marker on top of your die. The next time you place a die, you cannot be touching any of the adjacent spaces to the first dice you put down. That's pretty much the game. You just go back and forth, trying to get a line of ideally 4 of your dice or 3 of your dice in a row, and then the end die can be 1 from your opponent. But the goal is that all of those die, those 4 dice, die together, add up to 12. There is a blocker as well. There's 1 blocker die that you can use. It's just red. You place it down at the very start of your turn, and then you place your other dice as normal. But if your opponent is close to winning or into putting themselves into a situation to win, you can go ahead and put that dice down. That is the rules. It's played over 4 rounds. After each round, you do scoring, and then at the end of the 4 rounds, the person with the highest score wins. So I sat down and played this game with my wife. Let's just say I am not totally certain my wife is ever going to play this game with me again. And that is not a fault of the game. I think the game is very smartly designed. The way she explained it is it's like chess with dice. And that's kind of what it is you're always trying to think, not the next move, but 3, 4, 5, 6 moves ahead. That is what you're constantly trying to do. Because you can't put dice right next to each other, it really makes you think about spatially, how am I going to try to set things up to lure the other person into either not worrying about an area or to focus on themselves enough that I can kind of develop this area so I can get that the dice in order, in the number order that I want to. And the thing that's interesting is like there's multiple ways to block, right? Because you can block by putting your dice in.
Right.
And if it's in the middle, it messes up their route, so it's not a big deal. But you could also block by putting your dice at the end with a number that's not helpful to them. So it's not just about like, oh, I have to put it in the middle or something like that. Like you can put your dice on the end of theirs, and even though if it's the 4th die, they could count it towards their adding of 12. Well, if they need a 2, put a 4. So there's a lot of different ways that you can mess with the plans of your opponent. And we never had any of the rounds end in a tie, but we definitely got the points where you're thinking, okay, now if I go here, they can do this, and then I could do this, but then they're going to be able to do that, and trying to think 2, 3, 4, 5 moves ahead. Now, the game ended. The final score, I had like 120 some points, and my wife had like 7. So now, if you've ever listened to our podcast, or if you listen to our podcast for a long time, you know I don't beat my wife at games very often. She pretty much destroys me. So she wasn't super pleased. And it's not because, I just don't think she was in the mood for that style of game. I don't think she was in the mood for a game where you have to think as much as you have to while you're playing Doce. It's very straightforward. Even the 4 rounds took us 20, 25 minutes. It was very straightforward to learn. It's very quick to play because since the grid is so small, even though you're really thinking about all the moves you can make, there's only so many you can do that are worthwhile. So you're trying to think about more what numbers can I use, and also if you use the same number too many times, you lose points. It's not a significant amount, but I guess I could theoretically see where if you had a closer game where it was back and forth of people winning rounds, that losing the points for I think if you have 3 or more of a number in common, so if you have like 3 threes, you lose like 2 points. So it's not a ton, but if you are alternating wins, then that's going to become a bit of a bigger deal. So overall, I really like this game. I think this is a game I actually might take to work. I have a group of folks that I kind of regularly eat lunch with, and sometimes depending on meetings and everything else that's going on, sometimes lunches become one-on-one lunches. And this is something where you could easily like make your move and then like go back to eating, having a conversation. The other person makes their move, you go back. Like, so it's the thing that like, even if you don't get through 4 rounds, you can see whoever's ahead after 3 or whoever's ahead after 2. So it's got a lot of flexibility there. Doce is still, I think the Indiegogo will still be going when this episode posts, or it'll be right in that ballpark of maybe ending. But I definitely encourage you to give it a look. If you're looking for a game that is going to be easy to learn, but again, challenging to master, that has a lot of depth, you can play it with someone almost no matter the age that they are, because explaining the rules and understanding the rules is pretty straightforward and pretty easy. I think it's a pretty easy recommend. Again, it's not, if you're looking for something simple, this is probably not the game you want to play. But if you are looking for something that's going to kind of engage the brain a little bit, make you think abstractly, kind of maybe burn a few brain cells to get rid of those ones that don't work so well, I think Doce is a pretty easy thing to recommend.
It ends on December 30th.
Okay, so you'd have after this post, you'd have a couple days left to go back it on Indiegogo if you'd like to. And like I said, full disclosure, they did send us a copy. So if you want to take our thoughts with a grain of salt, you're welcome to do that. But this is definitely something I think that I will be playing. And actually, next time I go visit my parents, I want to take this to play with my dad. I think this is something he would really get into. So if you have a dad or a mom who likes chess or anything like that, I think this is an easy, much quicker way to get a game. They'll give you a similar feeling in. And that's Doce from those folks at Smart Iguana Games.
Yes, it should be noted too. Kyle and I both got prototype copies, but I also backed it, and I got mine today when I came home. It was here waiting for me. The Color Splash set, where you can pick 2 different colors that you want, and like he promised, like he said on the podcast, like they were delivered before Christmas. So good on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, if you order it, December 28th, you're not going to get it before Christmas. But that would be pretty amazing if that happened. Yeah. I guess you'll get it before Christmas 2019. So there you go.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Well, hey, Josh, what, sir, have you been playing on your television?
Well, Kyle, I have been playing this game. I lost you for a second. You went away. You had a little logo called Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Oh, boy. Such controversy in Discord about this game and its roster. We talked about it. We talked about this. Did we talk about this recently?
We talked very briefly about, like, you had just started playing it. That was all, though.
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it. It is Smash Brothers. So, I'm getting, I think I talked about it. Playing World of Light, unless that was on the PSVG podcast. I guess that's possible. I'm enjoying it. I haven't unlocked a crazy amount of characters. Mostly because it's just kind of been Smash Brothers for me was more of a play with other people, beat 'em up kind of game than anything else. So like most of my time playing other Smash Brothers games was couch co-op or online. So hopefully we have a Christmas party at my house on Sunday. So hopefully I will have played that, trying to talk about the past and the present at the same time. Hopefully we'll play some of that on Sunday. What else?
So really quick before you move on, because I'm going to talk about Smash Brothers as well. So we might as well talk about it in one fell swoop here. All right. How many characters do you have unlocked?
I don't know the number. I unlocked 3 more last night. So I'm going to say I'm like close to 20.
Okay. I think 15 total right now. So I'm not very far. I feel really dumb when I play this game.
Yeah, me too.
Because I have no idea what's going on. And my Smash experience is maybe a couple hours total prior to this game at friends' places, being like, here's a controller, hit some buttons, smash some people, like that's literally my Smash experience. So I played World of Light for a little bit, and I'm unlocking these spirits and all this stuff. I don't know what these people do. Like, I get that I kind of like put them to my character and they give me modifiers.
Yeah.
But is that it? That's it? That's what they do?
So all of them have a like elemental attribute.
Okay.
Which you want to offset whoever you're fighting.
Okay.
So there's like a tree that tells you like fire beats leaf beats water, whatever the tree is. I don't have it memorized. But that's not just it, because as you're unlocking characters, they also give you abilities while you're playing. So it's not just
okay.
Like, I could be mistaken, but I think one of the people I got from Metal Gear, I start with like a smash, I think, or some like smash a light ability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not a full smash, but it's like when your character is like glowing the smash colors. I feel like you, because like I know a little bit about the game, but like I see like Jason Lacey talking about the game, and he talks about it on another level.
Right.
Which
I feel like they're talking.
I don't know anything about anything for Smash Brothers.
When people who know what's going on talk about Smash Brothers, I feel like they're talking a foreign language to me. I don't get it. Like, I don't remember who it was in the Discord, so I apologize, because I was like, I don't really understand like what I'm supposed to do. Like, I suck at this game. I'm horrible. I am so bad. I'm really, really bad at this game. But I was like, how am I supposed to unlock characters? Like, you start the game and it's like, here's the game. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do to unlock characters? They're like, oh, if you play like the basic mode or whatever it is, or the classic mode or whatever.
Yeah, it was Satcom Servo.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Went in, started doing that. I'm like, sweet, get to learn these characters. This is going to be good. I'm not going to tell you what difficulty I start at and end at, because it's really embarrassing, but it's not high. Let me put it at that point. But then after the end of that, it's like you get this thing and this character and this other thing unlocks. And then here's all these currencies and this other stuff that you get. And I have no idea what to do with any of that stuff.
So you can, once you unlock the cave in the World of Light, you can send spirits in. Well, once you unlock it, you can send spirits into the cave, and every 6 hours you can fetch them, and then they level up. So that strengthens your spirits.
But what does that do?
So it makes them stronger, because as you go through World of Light, you're going to run into characters that are like level 90, 100. And if you're not leveling up light, you might be at like level 1000, and you will not be able to touch them. You'll get into the fight and you'll be KO'd in seconds. But what your spirits do is they strengthen your character. So it's strengthening your element ability to make you stronger against the weaker element. And it's giving you abilities based on each spirit tells you what ability they give you. So if you look at that spirit, it tells you the ability. You can also buy spirits at the like toadstool shops. As you find them and unlock them, you can buy more spirits.
So I'm having a good time while I'm playing, but I don't know if I've ever felt more inept in a game ever in my life than I have playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
It's a lot. They threw a lot at you in the spirit mode, because there's also other spirit stuff. There's a World of Light mode, but then there's like the spirit battles. Yeah. But then there's like spirit training. Right. And then there's another spirit thing, I think. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It's like a lot with
and like
no direction given to the player.
Right. And like I know I probably sound like a whiny like gamer when I say this. I really just wanted some sort of like, have you ever played a Smash Brothers game? Yes or no? If the answer is no, here's a very basic tutorial. How do you air dash? I have no idea. No clue how to air dash.
I don't air dash.
Like, I know it's a thing, and I was in one of the basic challenges or whatever when I was going through trying to unlock characters. I had to fight Ganondorf, and he's this huge thing, and you have to like only hit his tail. I'm like, how the crap do I get around this guy? Like, I can't get to the other side of him to hit his tail. And I'm like doing the double jump, but then the special up to try to get over him, but I kept getting caught by his stupid swords, and I'm like, I'm just frustrated. Like, I'm just frustrated. And the difficulty level I have this on is not high. It's super, super low.
Yeah.
So now I feel like an idiot because I can't do this. And I'm sure there's like a whole bunch of kids who are like acing this thing on like a difficulty 3 times higher than I have it on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I gave this game to like my mom who has never played video games like in her entire life. And I am now my mom trying to play this game. Like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I literally go into these things and I'm like, oh, I have to look at what all the moves are and I have to do all the stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not saying it's a bad game at all.
No, I hear you.
I'm just saying I am dumb when I play this game.
Oh, I was playing World of Light, and I keep trying to get to the character part. Like, there's like eventually you can get to a character to unlock a character, but you can't see who it is until you get to them.
Right.
Like, imagine my disappointment yesterday when I went through like 10 fights. A couple I lost multiple times to get to this character in the middle of a square who I already unlocked.
Oh gosh.
In the regular game. I'm like, ugh. So I was frustrated with that. But I think your goal should be my goal. We have the same goal, and it's what we should focus on. We just want to get these characters unlocked.
Yep, that's all I want to do.
So we have to focus on classic mode.
That is what I've been doing.
I just haven't been doing the cheat because then I feel like I'm cheating myself out of it a little bit.
Well, I don't do the cheat because I'm trying to actually reasonably get okay. Like,
the characters, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing, I was listening to the Nintendo Shack was recording on the same night we are. So I was listening to it a little bit while we were waiting to get going. And Caro is like, oh yeah, I beat World of Light again, got the true ending, yada yada. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I stop. And then I'm like, I feel even more inept at my abilities in this game. So
don't feel bad about that. That's not normal.
Well, I mean, yeah. So anyway, so that's Super Smash Brothers. We're both playing it. We'll keep playing it. This is not the place to come for expert commentary on Super Smash Brothers Ultimate.
No. In fact, everyone in the Nintendo Shack would steer you away from our podcast.
So if you want really inexpert commentary about our horrible skills in Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, come back next week and we'll have more woes to tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll have stories to tell you about.
All right, I apologize. Continue on though with what else you've been playing.
No, it's okay. I mean, Jagged Alliance Rage is the other game I have been playing. I did talk about this on the PSVG Prime podcast. This is a game I will be doing a review done quick for next week because it needs to be. I'm going to fall short of my deadline if I don't get it done by next week. I feel like I work for the newspaper. So I'll be doing a review done quick. I'll do it in audio, so we'll probably pop that up on the Patreon page. But anyone can access it. You don't have to donate to listen to it. This will just be a regular post. Jagged Alliance Rage is a game. It's on the Xbox One. I'm not sure if it's on other systems. I believe there was a Jagged Alliance 1 and 2 from my memory on the PC. Could have been on other platforms. This is a tactics style game. So think XCOM, Final Fantasy Tactics, Mario Rabbids, etc. What can I say about this game? It's terrible. It's just, I shouldn't say it's terrible. It's not good. It gives you the option for whatever reason. It supports 4K, so it lets you choose performance or frame rate. No, frame rate is performance, right? So graphics or performance. Mm-hmm. I didn't change whatever was on. Whatever it's on, it's not showing me anything that I would consider 4K at all. This frame rate isn't great. The graphics are not great. They're fine. This could be a 360 game. It's nothing. There's nothing groundbreaking about this game. The menus are terrible. In fact, when you are taking a turn in the game, just to try to change your movement, you're sitting there mashing the analog stick around trying to get it to select what you want it to select. It's not very well done. And this is another game that, like, right from the menu screen, the analog stick is like a mouse pointer, which, whether it is or not, to me, immediately in my head tells me this is a PC game. So I don't know if it's
It is available on PC, Xbox, and PS4.
Okay, so I'm assuming it's a port from the PC. It probably plays great on the PC, to be honest with you. It has everything that a PC game looks like and plays like. Whatever that means, take that as you will. I struggle with it because this is a publisher that has put out a series in this and doesn't feel like it's a game that, it feels like a new game. It feels like a game that hasn't existed before. It feels, it's sloppy. The writing is sloppy. Storytelling is sloppy. I say this from a guy sitting in a room in his house who's done nothing in the video game industry for writing. So I take my criticism with a grain of salt. I'm not here to tell you what good writing is and what bad writing is. But for me, for my experience, like I mentioned this, you start the game, your mission is to rescue part of your team who was captured in like this like Vietnam type scenario. So you pick characters out of the available characters. They have strengths and weaknesses. So you're, ultimately trying to pick the best character for what you want to do. And it's pretty much stealth gameplay. So like I didn't pick the Arnold Schwarzenegger commando guy who is super loud when he walks. So I didn't choose that guy. So you pick your guys, you get on the helicopter, you're flying to this rescue mission. The helicopter lands, you have two characters that you play with. They literally get off the helicopter, walk into the front door of the bad guy's headquarters, and proceed to get arrested and captured. But the story leading up to this, they're hyping you up. They're telling you, we're going on this stealth mission to rescue these guys. And you immediately get captured, and then you're in a basement in restraints, and something conveniently happens where you're able to coerce a bad guy to free you, and then he trains you on how to do things. It is so poorly written, and the voice acting is terrible. I feel like I need Mystery Science Theater behind me narrating the game as I play. So, I know, I'm being harsh.
So what you're saying is you didn't really enjoy your time with Jagged Alliance.
And I still have to play more because I can't give it a fair review unless I put more time into it.
But so far, it's not terrible. Really enjoying your time.
It's so bad. So, yeah, I mean, I'll try to be a little bit more fair when I do a review done quick, and a little bit more neutral. But you could literally go play Final Fantasy Tactics and get a better experience from a 15-year-old game than from this game.
All right. And you were provided with a review copy for this game, correct?
Yes, I should say that I was provided
making sure
with a review copy. I don't know how much it costs, but it's too much.
Okay. Any other games you've been playing?
No. And I should say, I don't know. Dear Jagged Alliance, this could be the Christmas funk. Maybe I like your game on December 26th, but probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I've been playing.
All right. So for me, like I said, we talked about Super Smash Brothers Ultimate already. Outside of that, for me, it's kind of been end of the year wrap up. I'm trying to kind of dust some games. I shouldn't say dust off. Finish some games up and kind of clear some things off of my backlog so that they are just done. So I've been working on getting through the Spider-Man DLC. So I've been working through that. Still been playing more Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight, more Beat Saber, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I keep thinking I have to be close to done with that game, and then it just keeps going. So I thought I'd be done with Shadow of the Tomb Raider already and on to other things, but still trying to figure out that game. I'm also playing a game for review, which I will hopefully have done by the end of the month. It's actually well, I know I'm trying. It's actually from the folks over at Rebellion, the folks who did the Sniper Elite series as well as Strange Brigade, which we talked about recently. It's called Arca's Path. It's actually a PSVR game. I shouldn't say just PSVR. It's on VR. I'm playing it on PSVR. It was a game I was actually looking forward to. So far, so good. I'm enjoying my time thus far, but there'll be much more about that in the near future. I'm not far enough to give even as much as Josh talked about his game. I just am not far enough to talk about Arca's Path that much. But if you're interested, I encourage you to go check out some screenshots and things of it, because it has a really cool dynamic art style that I think is pretty awesome, and it works really well for VR. And then outside of that, just playing some Overwatch, the Winter Wonderland event. By the time you hear this, our first community game night will have happened. Hopefully it was a huge rousing success. But I've also just been playing some of that, especially with the new patch that happened recently that came out with Winter Wonderland and some balancing of some heroes. So I've been enjoying my time there. So yeah, it's just been a lot of cleanup, trying to get things done so that I can start the new year not with a clean slate, because there's still some games I want to dump some serious time into, but I want to kind of tie up these loose ends here so that I can move on to some of those games that take a little bit more time. So outside of those things, nothing new other than, like I said, the whole Smash Brothers stuff. So with that, last week we talked about our year in board gaming and some of our favorite games we played and our best experiences. This week, though, we are going to be focusing on our year in video games. So we'll talk a bit about the games we've wished we'd had the opportunity to play but missed out on, our biggest surprises, the biggest disappointments we had, and finally, of course, our 5 favorite games of the year. So Josh, to properly frame this discussion, I think, whenever people, and sometimes I know people get frustrated about this, but when people are like, hey, here are my 5 favorite games, and people are like, hey, you forgot this game, which, whatever. I understand why people do that, but I think it's important that we talk about the games that we didn't play this year that we wanted to, or the games that we missed out on, to just get out of the way of like, hey, these games might have been really great, but we didn't play them, so they're not on our list. So Josh, are there any games that you wish you would have had the opportunity to play, but you missed out on this year?
So all year, I've been trying to find an RPG to play. I've been missing my one RPG. I try to play an RPG a year, but I get burnt out if I play more than one.
Real quick, just to clarify, do you not consider Assassin's Creed Odyssey to be an RPG?
No, sorry, I should be more,
you're talking like a Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah, like a more narrow explanation of RPG, like a Final Fantasy, or not necessarily a JRPG, but like
the more traditional, like
thank you,
Dragon
traditional, not narrow. Sorry. So I had all these games to pick from. I kept downloading Dragon Quest Inquisition because I only, when it came out, I only put in like a couple hours, and then something came up. So I was like, I'll play Dragon Quest this year. Played it for like another 20 minutes, and then I was trying to do it while playing all these other games. So that didn't fly.
So real quick then.
Yeah.
I know for our board game list we talked about, it was just stuff we played this year, may not have come out this year. For video games, are these things that you played this year that may have come out prior to 2018? Or is everything that you're going to talk about on your favorite list from 2018?
Well, we missed out on, right?
Right.
I mean, I can do whatever.
Well, I'm just saying, because if you're like, well, I missed out on playing Dragon Quest Inquisition.
Oh, I was just leading up to the game that I was...
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Continue on. Imagine that I didn't interrupt you at all.
So I kept trying out all these games. I re-downloaded Lost Odyssey on the 360. But like my biggest thing I was toying back and forth with was Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Octopath Traveler. And I kind of lived vicariously through Lucas because he got Xenoblade Chronicles, and he was talking about his frustrations with it, even though he enjoyed it. So it sounded like a game I would still like, but I'm looking for a game that like I can sit down and play. So I really feel like I missed out on Octopath Traveler just based on the style of gameplay, the different ways to play it, knowing I could take my own path and take my time with it. It'll probably be a game I get next year at some point. If we ever have a lull next year, it doesn't look like there's going to be one. But I really feel like I missed out on Octopath Traveler, along with a bunch of other Switch games, to be honest. I missed out on like The Messenger. I really wanted to try. I definitely missed out on Hollow Knight. Everyone in the world has been telling me to play that game. Soul Calibur 6. I really wish I'd spent the $30 on Black Friday and just bought that, even if I only played it a little bit. There's probably a lot more, but that's where I'll start. What about you? What do you have for games like that you missed out on?
So one of them is going to be overlap, and that is The Messenger. That is one game that I really was interested in playing and just haven't gotten around to. Haven't purchased yet either, which is unusual for me. Usually I buy a game for full price, and then 8 months later when I could get it for 2/3 the price, I finally start playing it. So, but I haven't played The Messenger yet. Really interested in that game. It looks really awesome. I'm a fan of the old Ninja Gaiden games, so that was something that kind of spoke to me. Another game that I haven't played at all is Forza Horizon 4. I promised Josh I would before the end of the year, and the year isn't over yet, but it is for the purposes of this podcast. And I feel confident covering my 5 favorite games, knowing I'm just not a person who enjoys driving in games in general,
which is fine.
But I do want to give this game a fair shot still, and dig into it, especially since I've paid for Game Pass and haven't played it yet. I feel like I should definitely go ahead and do that. Some more recent things though that I think I just haven't gotten around to, even though 2 of these I have downloaded and I just haven't had a chance to play them yet, is Ashen,
yes,
and Below. So both of those games obviously coming out here later in December. I just have not had an opportunity to get to them yet. They're not something I've been able to dive into, even though they're both staring at me on my Xbox when I boot it up. I hope to get to both of those soon or very early in 2019. I don't know that either one of them would make my top 5, but I think they could definitely be things that surprise me. And then the other game on my list of things that I missed out on that I really would have enjoyed playing this year was Guacamelee 2. I love the first Guacamelee game. Just, again, never got around to picking this one up because it was such a good year of games that I just never quite got around to this one. So those are kind of my games that I wish I would have had the opportunity to play, but just at this point did not get around to. So
I would add Jurassic Park Evolution to my list.
Okay.
Because even though we own it, I really feel like I missed out on playing it.
Okay, that makes sense. Because you played it a little bit, right?
Played the intro, and then I just kind of never picked it back up. And I think I get turned off by the fact that it is a mouse and keyboard game, but just the theme alone really was the reason why I bought it on the Xbox, was because I wanted to play it on that. So
right,
maybe I just spend $250 on that Razer keyboard that they just dropped for Xbox and play it with that.
Absolutely. So real quick, this is a question a topic that is not in the show notes, but I want to get your perspective on, and it's not something you need to prep for. But what happens at this time of year as we come to talking about, the favorite or, websites and quote unquote professionals are going to talk about the best games of 2018. I prefer to talk about the things that are my favorite because that's just the way I like to talk about things. But what do you do, or how do you handle ongoing games? Like, could Destiny 2 be a favorite game of 2018? Which, granted, has had very specific downloads and you have to pay more money to get more content, but something like, say, Overwatch, where there's been content updates. The game has more content now than it did at the beginning of the year. You don't have to pay anything extra for any of that. How do you count games like that? Fortnite, that has been ongoing, that is constantly updating it and creating, even though it was out last year.
Yeah.
Rainbow Six Siege, basically any Ubisoft game at this point.
Right.
How do you handle those? Do you think it's okay or appropriate to say the best games of 2018 and you include those? Or when you say the best games of 2018, should you not include those? I
think Destiny throws a interesting wrench in that, because you could argue that Destiny Forsaken is a different game, but it isn't really. Fortnite Season 7, you could say, oh, that was the best 28. It's an argument that could be had. I don't necessarily support that argument. I would say if you're going to make a list of the best games released in 2018, they shouldn't be part of that list because they weren't released in 2018.
So when you, and most of them don't, none of the lists really that I can think of, and maybe there's some that none of them say the best games released in 2018.
Right. It's wording.
It's the best games of 2018. So in 30 years, when you go back and you look at, they're my neighbors to the north, so I always use them, Game Informer's list of best games of 2018, us having lived through 2018, does it make any sense for Fortnite not to be on that list?
No, so let's jump ahead in the future. Okay. So let's go into a world where Fortnite 2 is out. Okay, so let's say 2019, 2020. let's say 2020. Let's say we're 2020 and we're on the brink of next-gen consoles, but nothing has been launched. But people haven't wanted to develop games for current gen. So let's say Fortnite 2, well, so let's say Fortnite Season 22 is the only good content released in 2020. We would have to say the best game of the year was Fortnite. If it was the best best game of the year, it is an argument that you could say there were no good games that were released this year. The best game of this year was Fortnite. I think that's plausible. I don't think it's possible. Like, I don't think we'll run into a situation where we have that, but it's a plausible situation where the thing that we run into is it's all subjective. Who is saying what is a good game?
That's why I said favorite.
Right, because if you say, well, you could say Fortnite is a favorite game, but
yep,
you couldn't, like, you could also say Fortnite was the best game of 2018 as yourself, but it's not one of my best games of 2018. But I think, like, you could argue that Kevin Austin might say that Fortnite was one of the best games of 2018.
Right. Because, like, when I think about my favorite gaming experiences of this year, how do I not include Overwatch?
Right, you have to. And I think a large portion of gamers would say that. Like, Overwatch is its own thing. So is Fortnite. So is Destiny. And there's just a little teeny tiny bit of overlap. I think that's why it's such a, like, hot topic, because there's all these different camps. And it's just, like, right in the middle. They all touch for a second, and none of those people get along.
So to be clear, I didn't include Overwatch on my favorite games of the year because I very much went with the old school, and probably because I'm an old person, thing of like, hey, these are the games that were released in 2018.
Yeah.
But I think there is a valuable and valid argument if you were to say Fortnite or, Destiny 2 Forsaken or Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege. If those you're like, oh, that was my favorite game of 2018, like, I wouldn't fight you on it, So, anyway.
No, I hear you.
All right. So, hey, that was a fun conversation. Let's move on. Biggest surprises. What were the things? And this could be games. This could be topics. This could be kind of anything you want it to be. What were some of the biggest surprises for you in regards to video games 2018?
So this is a game I played in 2018 that did not come out in 2018, but as much as I really like Overwatch, I did not think revisiting Paladins would have meant anything to me. But I really had a great time playing Paladins for the little time I did on the Xbox and on the Switch this year. I think they made a lot of great game improvements to make it a much better contender to Overwatch. It's definitely different, even though it's compared so much. It's definitely a completely different gameplay style. But I can see where people make the comparisons. Planet of the Apes: The Last Frontier was a game that came out of nowhere. And it's this total motion capture cinematic gaming experience for someone like me who loves Planet of the Apes. It was easy for me to look past its flaws, which has very much the telltale-y glitches and stuff in the game. Speaking of, that's certainly a surprise. Telltale just shuttering. Yeah. And then kind of being revived by Skybound Games. That whole situation was very surprising. I don't know that anyone saw that coming.
Yeah, that really seemed out of like left field. Like when I remember when the news first broke and in the Discord, people were like, this has to be a joke, right? Like this can't be right. There's no way this is accurate.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, it was very surprising. I would argue we've seen some of the biggest surprises in the past few months. Sony not going to E3 is still a surprise, regardless of anyone's thoughts on it.
Absolutely.
Seeing the three big guys at the opening of the Game Awards was a big surprise, and for me at least, and symbolic, if anything. Whether anything comes from it, which probably won't, is irrelevant. I think that I tried to think back to when we have ever seen them even in the same room together, and I don't think that I've ever dug around deep enough to find a picture of that.
For all three of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it probably has happened. I know that there have definitely been events where like Sean and Phil have both been there like judging things together.
Sure.
But I don't know that there's been like hey, we're here to represent our brands to the public or to buyers or anything like that in a way where all three of them have been like together, like next to each other, like we're going to do this thing. But there definitely have been like, I know events even in this last year that like Sean and Phil for sure, maybe Reggie, but Sean and Phil for sure have been at like judging things and things like that. So
cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm sure. And then I think like the biggest surprise for me this year as a fanboy just happened, and that was getting the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 reveal, which I didn't see coming. If you go into our Discord, at least once a month, someone talks about Ultimate Alliance and when are we going to see another one. No matter what room you're in, it'll pop up in Xbox or PlayStation or, and it's been one of my favorite games. And when they closed down Marvel Heroes, that was such a big bummer for me. And that was like the embodiment of Ultimate Alliance. So I just hope it's good. I can't wait. That was a huge surprise for me to see.
Do you want to, I didn't know if I wanted to ever tell anybody this, but I'm going to tell you this. And I'm sure our listeners will appreciate it. So
you don't like it?
No. So watching the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's like, here's an announcement that no one's expecting, right? And that they start the trailer. The first thing I thought was that somehow, despite Telltale closing, they're porting Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy.
I thought so too, actually.
That's what I thought. Right. Yeah, when I saw it, that is what I thought was happening. Yeah. And I was like, I mean, that's not that big of an announcement. I mean, it's kind of odd that, with Telltale closing that they're doing this. So I guess that's kind of bombshell. Like, I guess. Yeah. But I really did not. I did not anticipate that was going to be Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 when the trailer started.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I thought the same thing, that it was Guardians Telltale.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm interested. I'm very interested to see how that game is. I enjoyed the previous ones, but I don't know if I enjoyed them maybe as much as other people did. I thought they were fun. Yeah. But I'm definitely not as stoked as other people are. But I do agree that was a very that announcement was definitely out of left field. I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a game series like Ultimate Alliance for like the comic book fanboys that represented so many different variations of every character and so many characters. So as a comic book nerd, you're not just playing as Logan, you're playing as Weapon X, you're playing as Bone Claw, you're playing as all these Savage Lands, like you're playing as all these different versions of Wolverine. Mm-hmm. Even though his moves are the same, you're still getting that visual appeal. So like until like Spider-Man on the PlayStation, it's been a while since we got like a superhero game where you get this physical representation of a character in so many different forms.
Right.
So that was one of my favorite things about Ultimate Alliance, and unlocking characters. So I know that's a little Smash Brothers dig, but you also did have to unlock characters in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Mm-hmm. As you progressed, you just progressed, and it was more enjoyable to unlock them.
I'm not gonna dig you out of this.
It's okay. All right, I'll sit right where I am. Yeah, so those are some of my surprises. How about you?
So yeah, for me, I think kind of going a few things. Number one, I think people probably know by now I'm a pretty big Sony fanboy. I think seeing the evolution of Sony throughout the year to me has been really surprising. I thought, and there are some people who are going to disagree with me, and that's totally fine. I think that being a plugged in person to everything that they do is obviously going to be very different than the general public or people who are on the fringe. Just like I'm not as in tune with what's happening with Nintendo as like the folks at the Nintendo Shack and stuff are. I just don't live in that world as much. But seeing like at the early in 2018, I felt like PlayStation was very disconnected, very not listening to their fans and not really communicating in effective ways. They came out, they had an E3 show that was kind of meh, that it was some cool games, but like nothing about it, like how they presented it. It all seemed really weird and forced. And there were some cool games in there. Like nobody seems to talk about the fact that like Neo 2 was announced during that showcase. And that was, but like overall, like it was a pretty like weird kind of thing. And then they've been really stodgy about crossplay and like all these other things. And then slowly, there was this little blog post on the PlayStation blog at like end of August, early September. Shad Lane went on the PlayStation blog and was like, hey, we're going to start doing things differently. We want to start communicating more directly. We want to start, figuring out new ways for us and better ways for us to communicate with our fans about what they want and to talk about what we're doing. And then you saw, okay, maybe it's not a great first step, but hey, crossplay is in beta still, right. On PS4, but they did something, when they really didn't have to do anything yet. Name changes, not the ideal solution or probably the best way to do it, but they're like, hey, we heard you and we're going to try to do something to fix this. Then they said, hey, no PSX, but the reason why we're not doing PSX is because of these reasons. Hey, we're not going to E3 because we wanted to do different things with how we're going to interact with you moving forward. Now, they have written a lot of IOUs, right? They have said, hey, here are all the things that we're going to do a better job of these things. We're going to do a better job of these things. Sean Layden replied to someone not too long ago about like, hey, don't worry, we're going to see you in 2019. I think that they are posed to either have a really great year or a really crappy year. Like one of those two things is going to happen for them in 2019. And I'm very interested and very surprised by this change and how they set themselves up. And I'm very interested to see how that pays off for them, either for better or potentially for worse. And I'm very interested to see how that goes. So that for me has really been a surprise, the evolution of Sony throughout the year. I'm really surprised by Tetris Effect. That was a huge surprise for me because it's Tetris, right? How can Tetris be better? How can Tetris have an impact on me as a gamer in a way that Tetris has never had before? I've always liked Tetris. Tetris has always been a fun game. But man, the Tetris Effect really helps sell the power and immersion of VR in a way that, Thumper kind of has, but really Tetris Effect ramped that up and really showed how you can take a game that everyone knows and put it in VR. And if you do it the right way, you can really make and sell how amazing VR can be. And I think that's shown by the fact of how many sites and other places that have Tetris Effect as a nominee for their game of the year, and it's Tetris, right? I think most people wouldn't argue that Tetris overall, like original Tetris as a like best of all time games, absolutely. It's one of those groundbreaking puzzle games that's always going to be on like top 100 of all time lists. But for Tetris Effect to be on best game of 2018 lists, I think says a lot about what VR is able to do. So I think Tetris Effect was a huge surprise to me. Another game that was a huge surprise to me was Dead Cells. This was a game that, had been like, I think it was in early access for quite a long time, but I'm not a PC guy. So I hadn't really paid that much attention to it. And, it came out and it had some good buzz. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and play this. And my goodness, did that game surprise me and suck me in like I had not anticipated it was going to. Something that I wish I had been paying closer attention to now in retrospect, but also I'm kind of happy that it caught me so off guard and it was this pleasant little, this thing is really great. So Dead Cells, something that really caught me by surprise. And I think the final thing for me that was a big surprise of the year was really just the amazing year that PSVR has had. When we were rolling into 2018, PSVR was kind of in the, okay, you need to start putting up something here. We need to start having something that's more than just experiences. And, we got Moss earlier in the year and some other solid games, Sprint Vector, some games from Oculus and things like that came over in raw data and other things like that. But then really this fall, PSVR has really kind of knocked it out in the park and quietly had, I think, if you look at platforms as a whole, and if you count PSVR as a platform, I think it maybe has had some, I don't want to say the strongest because there's some really amazing games out there, but I think it's had a stronger year than some of the other platforms have, just with the games that have been released on it, the quality of the games that have been released on it, and the experiences that are available to it now. And I think it's really showing that, hey, this format and this way of doing games works well and really offers something different than what you see in traditional consoles. Hopefully that continues on to 2019. But I think really I was surprised by all of your PSVR had based off of what their 2017 was. 2018 was very surprising to me.
I'm sorry for my cough on mic. I forgot that I wasn't muted.
It is okay. It is okay. We are a conversational podcast. That is going to happen. All right. So before we roll into our top 5 favorite games, 2 other things we're going to cover. Number 1, Josh, what were some of your biggest disappointments this year?
This will be a fun list. Let's start with Sea of Thieves for one. And I guess, I mean, it had so much potential to me. I think I had a lot of fun with Sea of Thieves at the beginning, but once you've done one thing, you've done everything.
Have you played it lately?
I haven't played it lately. I know they've added ship combat, but the reason why I haven't played it lately is because everyone I used to play with has stopped playing. So I don't have my crew anymore. So like it would just be me jumping in a dinghy and immediately getting killed now that there's ship-to-ship combat. I mean, I could always jump back in and see like what it looks like. Visually, they don't have to change anything. It's visually stunning.
It was a very beautiful game.
It's so beautiful. I just thought I'd be playing it all year. Thought it would be a game that it seemed so wide open. Like you'd be finding treasures and you'd be fighting sea monsters like that. Like the Megalodon, it was timed. It was like a week you could fight the shark, then it was gone. Like it's so. I was very disappointed in the overall, even though I was happy with it when it first came out. Along the same exact lines, State of Decay 2 falls right in that same boat. I hate myself for that.
That was good. I appreciated that.
I had a good time with it by myself at first, and then I quickly realized it is the type of game I hate, which is resource collecting, and all you're doing is driving places to get things to bring back to your house that may not still be fortified by the time you get back, or someone's sick and dying and they die before you come back. Or I know there's people who enjoy it. I'm happy for them. I know Coach Mo really enjoys it. I tried playing like a game with Coach, and for whatever reason, I get kicked out, or they were doing something I couldn't grasp, which is another problem with the game. You like trying to jump in with friends who have a task and a mission. You're either going to slow them down or screw up what they're doing. And I think I managed to do both. So I just quit. I just dropped out. So I wasn't happy with that. The Friday the 13th, the game, I don't even know if it came out in 2018. It might have been 2017, but 2018 was the year I decided to get in on it. And that game, I won't even spend too much time on it. It was a buggy mess. And I just wish it was better. I was so excited when Adam Sessler was announced. He was working on this game, and he was such a big horror fan, and it had such promise. But man, yeah, that was a disappointment and a half. This whole nonsense with Battle Royale and potentially stifling Battlefield 5's launch and being successful was a real bummer to me, that whole situation that happened. I'm not going to say Battlefield 5 is a disappointment of a game for me, but the whole thing that happened around it, the launch, the timing of, I don't know, maybe if they should or shouldn't have delayed it or what. I'm just kind of disappointed about it as a whole. I kind of just wish it was just better handled, I guess. I'm going to say Sony's E3 presentation, but I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way. I just, because like what they showed, some of the stuff they showed I really enjoyed, but the stuff I really enjoyed got negative buzz, and the stuff I didn't enjoy got positive buzz. So I think as a whole, for me, it was a disappointment. Are
you talking specifically about like The Last of Us 2?
Actually, I like The Last of Us 2 part.
Right, and it got pretty negative reactions.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I apparently, I still don't think what we saw was actual gameplay. I know I'm in the minority on that, and I can't wait to be proven wrong.
Right, you think they're liars, is what you're saying. You think they are liars.
Yeah. I guess I have to take that from you, from all the Far Cry 5 stuff.
Well, we definitely we had a conversation about that afterwards.
Yes, we did.
And whether, what is it appropriate for developers to show aspirational things. Like this is where it's currently at. Like this is, but is that what's going to be shippable in a year or 2 years? And if it's not, you know, they might not know that right now. And is it okay still to show that? And how do you make that decision and all of those things, which we don't need to rehash again right now.
No, we don't.
You can go back and listen to that old episode if you'd like.
It's the holiday season. And I'm extra salty. I don't want to throw extra salt into our conversation. And then to make it fair, and I do honestly believe this, I'm not just saying it to make it fair. I'm really disappointed in Xbox, my experience with Xbox overall for the year. I got my Forza Horizon 4. I'm very happy with that. We got some great announcements from E3. But man, did we get a stinker with EXO 2018. And what a terrible year for first party games. Like, we really needed a great year. And I say we as an Xbox fan, we really needed something great. We had awesome things. Game Pass has been phenomenal. We've had a decent year with Games with Gold. We've had good support. I'm still very much a big fan of Microsoft, but I'm coming off on a year where PlayStation was a better console for me, and that's never happened.
I think as a PlayStation fan, I was really excited with my year of playing games on PlayStation. I also really think in 2 years, probably most people, 2 years being when the new consoles come out, I think Xbox is going to be ready to eat Sony's lunch.
I hope so. And while I want them to both be successful, I really have been waiting for Microsoft to really steal it back from the 360 time. Like, I was disappointed with the Xbox One's launch, and I was there day one. There was a lot of things like, I keep thinking, okay, we're building up. And then I was like, okay, Xbox One X, perfect time to get this lineup of awesome future games out now on your future console that's crushing the PS4 Pro. And we just didn't get that, at least not this year. So do I think Crackdown 3 is going to be our savior? No. So
it might be.
It might be. It's unlikely that you see a game delayed so much to come back and crush it. But yeah, I mean, it was a tough year as an Xbox fanboy. Yeah.
All right. Well, luckily, in a week or so, we're going to start talking about all the things we're looking forward to in 2019 and make some resolutions and things like that. So then I'm sure we'll talk much, much more about Crackdown 3. For me, some of my biggest disappointments, I think this is kind of a weird one, but it is a huge disappointment I've had. I just haven't had the time this year to put the hours into gaming that I have in the past years. I probably played less games total time this year than I did last year. And that to me is disappointing because there's so many games that I want to be putting more time into. And just because of life and work and everything else, even like just doing this podcast and getting things set up for that, like it takes time, you know, and the time that I do this is the time I used to spend gaming. And I love doing this, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Just, I wish I had more time. I wish I was independently wealthy so that I could play games far more often. But I think about a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Really, really loved my time with it. I wish I had 3 times the amount of hours in it than I do. I just, haven't had the time to pour into it like I usually do. So that's one big disappointment for me. Another disappointment, really, and I think it might have been the right move, but I'm really bummed that there was no PSX this year. I'm really sad that Sony decided to make that cancellation. I really thought that, Sony's like, hey, there's no PSX. And Xbox is like, yo, is XO18? I was like, oh boy, this is going to be rough. This is going to be really rough for PlayStation fans. I don't feel like it ended up being too rough, but I'm still very disappointed because I think that they could have done PSX, and maybe they didn't have to have huge blockbuster announcements. I think they could have done really the things that the core fans wanted and focused on those, and still do a stage show and still do the presser event and not do what they did last year with like the sit downs. But I don't think they necessarily needed to have like 5 blockbuster announcements and, all this stuff. Like, the folks who are there are the hardest of the hardcore, right? They care about the nitty gritty stuff and the quote unquote small things. Like, they care about those things. And I think they could have built a show based around that the hardcore PlayStation fan base would have been excited about. So I'm a little disappointed that they decided to opt out of that this year. Another disappointment was the PlayStation Classic, and and I think it's a disappointment because I don't own one, and that to me is why it's disappointing. The fact that they couldn't get me to buy one tells you something, I think. So that for me was a big disappointment. And finally, my last disappointment, because I couldn't let you down and I couldn't let Donnie down. The end of Far Cry 5 was horrible. That was such a disappointing ending to a game. The end of that game is just bad. Bad. Did not enjoy that. Super disappointed by the ending of that game. Ugh. There you go. Ending of Far Cry 5. Probably my biggest disappointment.
Whoa. Oh, boy.
Maybe not the biggest, but
Hashtag Kyle hates Far Cry.
That's why, like I said, it's no matter how much I deny that being true, I feel like I just have to lean into it now because no one listens to me. No one listens to me about my true feelings on that game. All right, before we roll into our top 5 games of the year, Josh, we asked out on the world of Twitter and in Discord for people to give us a reflection and maybe what their favorite games of 2018 were, how they'll remember 2018 in regards to video games. Do you want to take us through what some of the great folks said both on Discord and Twitter about 2018?
Sure thing. Let's start with Voiced by Nathan in Discord. He says, great year for video games. Really enjoyed playing my PlayStation for the first time in forever with Spider-Man. That is a spectacular game. Red Dead Redemption 2 is massive and has an open world that you are encouraged to explore as you engross yourself in the West. Fantastic story and cast. Smash Brothers is quite the accomplishment with a massive roster, allowing you to play the best version of Smash anywhere on the Switch. Oh, and the PSVR seems to have been reignited this year, especially towards the end of the year as games like Astrobot, Beat Saber, and Tetris Effect coerced this guy, that would be Nathan, to bite on a sale and get a unit of his own. That's big because Voiced by Nathan, he's an Xbox guy and now he owns a PSVR. That's pretty huge. Of course, Splig at Dopalicious chimes in with a laughing emoji. A spam bot replied, "You've arrived." So far for me, he says, haven't been able to play God of War yet. It's a toss-up between Spider-Man and Dead Cells.
2 excellent choices, Splig. 2 excellent choices.
Paul at Calico drops in at PCalico84. He says, I'm a pick 2, yo. Spider-Man and Dad of War, best games I played this year. Okay, Paul, those are good games. I haven't heard of Dad of War, but I'll have to look up that one and see what it is. Playing Nintendo in the Discord, that's Donnie Reese. He says, 2018 has been an amazing year of video games. Between playing incredible exclusive blockbusters on my PS4, staring at my TV in awe of 4K textures and spontaneous announcements for Game Pass on my Xbox One, or learning a whole new way to play a Pokemon game on Switch before the Smash takeover largely across all consoles, everyone has had more than enough to be excited for in 2018. I think at this time last year, many of us were hoping we'd have played games by now that we're still looking forward to playing, hoping land in 2019. But as we've learned in 2018, the majority of us playing games just need to be able to play Fortnite with our friends to be happy. That's a very fitting end to that sentence, and that's a great observation. And lastly, Lucas Rose, Heavy Metal Riff himself, via Discord says, technically released in 2018 for consoles, even though I played on PC, Hollow Knight charmed me completely with its dark he says environments and insectoid characters, solid gameplay and controls, also sweeten the deal. Didn't play too many games from 2018, so no disappointment here, but I'm bummed. That's where we land on that.
Awesome. All right. So, Josh, we will go through our 5 favorite games of 2018, just kind of jumping back and forth here. So, sir, number 5, what was your 5th favorite game of this year?
This is going to be you would never have been able to guess this. But it's my number 5 because it just makes it on there. It's my number 5 because it's a shared experience. If I played this game by myself, it probably wouldn't be in my top 10. But Pokemon Go Eevee is my number 5. because I played it. This is a game that I legitimately played with my wife, and that doesn't happen. And I didn't expect to enjoy it. I kind of pushed her to play it the day I gave it to her. I was like lying in bed. I was like, "Can you just play it? I want to see what it's like." And I gave her my Pokemon Go account from when I played Pokemon Go forever ago. And she started playing, and then she's like, "We can play 2-player." And I just had a Joy-Con in my hand, and I'm just sitting there playing her game with her. So my investment isn't to my own game. It's to helping her get her character through a game to catch these Pokemon, helping her do these things. Something I really didn't have an investment in, at least right away, to a game that I will never say no to her asking me to play with her. I won't necessarily sit down and start my own game. That's possible. It can happen. But as far as I didn't want to include it in like my biggest surprises because I didn't want to like spoil it. But like it was genuinely one of my favorite game experiences of the year, which puts it into my top 5 favorite games of the year.
Awesome. Very cool. You're going to kind of sense that there's going to be a pretty solid theme with my 5 games this year. My number 5, top 5, fifth favorite game of the year was actually Moss from the folks over at Polyarch, the game that came out on PSVR in February and then hit Oculus and Vive, I believe, around E3 time in June. You play the reader, I believe, is technically, who you are, and you're guiding Quill on her adventure to go save her uncle. And this was a game when it was announced at E3 2017 that immediately adored me. I thought Quill seemed like a very awesome character, and I was I had a strong desire for some games that were really, I wanted to be hooked into VR more than I had been, and that game looked amazing. And then when it came out, less than a year later, I was still really excited about it, and it lived up to the hype for me. It was a game I was worried that maybe I was getting too excited for, that maybe I had overblown potentially how awesome the game might be, but my goodness, did I enjoy every minute of it. I assume they're working on a Moss 2. That's definitely how the first one ends. It kind of ends at like, this is chapter 1. So I'm hoping that we're going to get information about a second one soon. That's kind of what I was hoping would happen at like a PSX this year, is that we would learn more about maybe Moss 2. But really great game. It's one of those things that if you own a PSVR, definitely a game you need to play. Does an excellent job of kind of doing third-person VR, and I think that is now my favorite VR without a doubt, is third-person. Does it well. Quill's a great character. Really awesome story. Wonderful music. Great visuals even for VR. Easily in my top 5. Kind of surprised it didn't finish a little higher. Might be because I played it a while ago, but Moss, number 5, favorite game of the year. Josh, what is your number 4 favorite game of the year?
Well, appropriately enough, it is Forza Horizon 4.
Did you do that just because it was Horizon 4?
No, it's actually I thought it would be higher. I thought it would be my number 1. Based off of my,
hype.
Forza Horizon 3 was my number 1 game of 2017. Right? Am I mistaken? Wasn't it?
Didn't Horizon Zero Dawn come out in 2017?
Oh, so that was my number 2 game.
Okay.
That was my number 1 game on the Xbox podcast. Okay. That's what it was.
Okay.
Whew. Yeah. Now you got, like, people can't see the looks I see from you, but sometimes when Kyle gives me a look, I get worried.
I just was like, man, maybe things changed. I thought
you're right. So it was my second favorite game of last year. I thought it would be my favorite game this year. It came just shy of being as good as Horizon 3. I know for a lot of this year, I liked it more than Forza Horizon 3. And it still could be better than Forza Horizon 3. Here's the problem that happened with Forza Horizon 4. Everyone was comparing it to Forza Horizon 3, which was a game that had already had 3 expansions out for it. And they're comparing Horizon 4 to a complete version of Horizon 3, which added Blizzard Mountain, which added Hot Wheels. And people are like, playing Forza Horizon 4, I really wish there was like some snowy areas and stuff. I'm like, you didn't get that in Forza Horizon 3 for a while. So that kind of brought me down a little bit I'm trying to meet on that level. So I'm like, okay, I can understand maybe Forza Horizon 4 isn't better than Forza Horizon 3 now, but it could be. So like for a few months, I was like, Forza Horizon 4 is better than 3. Ultimately, the longer I play it, the more I realize it really is just missing out on that content bump. And I know they just released their first DLC.
Right, yep.
The Island one, which I haven't gotten yet. But you guys have heard me talk about how much I enjoy Horizon 4. It's such a great game. The Horizon games, in my opinion, might be the perfect racing games for me, which is why I love them so much. It's in between simulation and arcade. It's not too much of either. So it's
I was going to say, a way that these games were described to me, and I'm wondering if you agree with it, and I'm interested in your thoughts on it, is that Forza Horizon 4 is not a racing game. It is a driving game.
You can play it that way. This is what I don't like. I like that they have the option. You can play Forza Horizon 4 or 3. You can play it so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to play it as a racing game, there's hundreds of races. You go ahead, play it as a racing game. If you want to play it as open world driving game, go to town. You don't have to follow roads. You don't have to follow the GPS. You can go jumping over hills for hours if you want. If you want to be a completionist, you can go hunt down signs if that's what you want to do. If I'm driving and I see signs will pop up on the map, if I see a sign, maybe I'll stop and hit it, but I'm not usually stopping and roaming looking for signs.
Right.
But you can do that if you want. I love, like, there's big, huge spectacle events. You race a hovercraft, you race a jet, you race 3 motorbikes, you do the Halo mission. It's incredible. There's no game like it. Seth will argue that the crew is like it, but I play the crew. I do not like it. The controls are terrible. But that's just me. So Forza Horizon 4, my number 4 game of the year.
Awesome. So my number 4 game of the year, I don't probably have quite as much to talk about it as, Josh just did for Forza Horizon 4, not in a bad way, but just because it's a very focused game. And once you start doing it and playing it, you recognize what you're getting yourself into, and you recognize exactly what that loop is. And either you like that loop or you don't. And this was a loop that I really enjoyed, and it was also one of my biggest surprises of the year, and that is Dead Cells. I had a fantastic time with this game. It is a game I still boot up regularly and play when I'm, towards the end of the night. I wanted to play something for a half an hour, just get in one more run. If I'm traveling, it is still my go-to travel game when I am at places or on the road. I really, really, really enjoyed my time with Dead Cells, and it's something that I feel like this is a game that I'm going to continue to play easily into 2019 and probably beyond, just because I love how the game feels to play. I like the combat in it. I think it's fun. I like the variation on the different ways when you're getting runs, the different weapons you can get. It's just something that I really have had a fabulous time with, and I'm really, really thrilled that I wonder if I could say really anymore. I'm thrilled with the care and attention to what this game was and how different builds and how you can really approach the game in a way that feels good for you. Like how I play and how Josh plays and how anyone else plays might be completely different, but they're still all viable. You could argue potentially that there's quote unquote best builds and quote unquote best ways to do things and approach things, but there are many ways that can work. And I think that's what makes the game so much fun, is that it's not that you must get this crossbow and this trap and this power. It's you can get those things if you want to, or you can go this other route and get these things, or you can look for these ones and try to build things this direction. So loved my time with Dead Cells, something I'm going to continue playing, and easily slotted itself as my number 4 favorite game of 2018. Josh, sir, what's your number 3?
Dead Cells was my number 6, by the way.
Ooh.
It would have been number 5.
Just narrowly getting booted from the top 5.
Yeah. Well, when you play bad like I play, it's harder to get it into the top 5. Because I love it, but I play bad. Number 3, Far Cry 5.
I'm glad you love it. I'm really glad you love it. It was, according to my little year in review thing, it was my most played game on Xbox.
It was my most played, 44 hours.
I think I was at 33 or something like that.
And I could play I didn't even finish the expansion, so I could have easily logged over 60 hours in that game. I really wish PlayStation sends out things like those. Anyways.
I agree. They should. They don't, and they very rarely do.
They should. Far Cry 5, I think one of the reasons why it's affected me much more than it has you, is because I never played a Far Cry game before this. I know like one of your gripes was it's very similar to all the other Far Cry games, I believe.
Yes.
So for me, it wasn't like rehashing anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wholly new experience for me. So I didn't run into the glitches you did.
Yeah.
I didn't mind the ending. In fact, when I got the ending, I was like, I must have missed something, and I did. Like this little meta game that was going on in the game, like I just missed it. So that made it cooler to me. So I can't wait for Far Cry New Dawn. It's only going to be $40. I saw it too. That's enticing. Yeah, I mean, I loved everything about the game, and anyone who's listened to this podcast this year knows that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I picked it back up before the end of the year, just to feel it, to get it like one last little play before the year ends. So yeah, number 3 for me, Far Cry 5.
Awesome. My number 3, a game I have talked at length that I about how much I enjoyed it. I said earlier in the year on this podcast that if this game was released by a different company, that people would have gone gaga over it and talked about it as a Game of the Year candidate. And just because it was released by Sony, it was not looked at that way, specifically on PlayStation VR. And that is Astrobot Rescue Mission. This is a game that when it was announced, I was really excited about. I even made jokes. I shouldn't say jokes. I made comments in the Discord about how everyone was talking about all the big games coming out in fall, and everyone was ignoring this very potential Game of the Year nominee. And everyone was like, ha, 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 Kyle, you're stupid. And I was like, no, this game is going to be awesome, because the demo of this game on the demo disc for PlayStation VR was fantastic. It was so good. And hearing that they're making it into a full-blown game, I think that the love and attention to detail in this game is wonderful. I think it is really does and takes platformers in a little bit of a new direction and uses VR and makes a game that you could only play in VR to have the impact and effect that it does. So if you have a PSVR, this is a must-own title. If you're thinking about getting a PlayStation VR, this is the game that you should absolutely get, number 1. And combining that with the fact that you can get a bundle with both Moss and Astrobot in it means it's like the perfect way to get into VR. You're going to be getting two of the best, both two of the best PSVR games, but also two of the best games of this year in a bundle with the VR headset. So Astrobot to me is pure joy. The game is just so fun. And I just want to play more of it. I hope that there's a second one coming. I would be happy with DLC for it at this point. Like, I just want more Astrobot in my life. So that is my number 3 game, Astrobot Rescue Mission. All right, Josh, we're down to the top 2.
Yeah, what will they be?
I know what possibly could they be. I feel like I know what they might be, but we'll start with you, sir. Your number 2 favorite game of the year.
Before I gotta say, I don't remember you talking about Astrobot. I remember everyone else talking about it when it came out, though.
Now you're just being mean to me. Now you're just being a jerk.
I'm just
the salt of the season.
So yeah, my number 2 game of the year is Mighty Number 9.
You're such a liar.
It's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. Marvel Spider-Man, to be specific. I mean, wow, what a game, I say. I wanted that to sound scripted a little bit. I mean, I had high hopes. I'm a big comic book guy. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. However, I didn't realize like how much of a Spider-Man fan I was, and how much, like I've said this before, how much I knew. Like I didn't remember how much I forgot about how much I knew about Spider-Man.
That was a really complicated sentence, but I completely 100% understand what you meant.
Like, I'm playing Spider-Man, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember watching the Spider-Man cartoon. Oh yeah, I remember playing Maximum Carnage on the SNES. And oh yeah, I remember playing all these games with my brother and getting the figures and reading the comics. Like, it's kind of funny, like, it's like that muscle memory. Like, I know Spider-Man. I know I like Spider-Man, but now I remember. I start playing this game and I'm remembering everything I love about this character, and how like Spider-Man 2 was the best of all the Spider-Man movies. and all these things about Spider-Man that I love. Tobey Maguire, best Spider-Man that we've had ever. So it brought me down this path, and I'm kidding to everybody who's listening who doesn't know that I'm just doing this to drive Devin crazy, who probably doesn't even listen to our podcast. So for no one, for myself, it was just so incredibly well done. This is a game that took Donnie, who's not a big comic book fan, and I'm not going to say that it turned Donnie onto comics, but he loved this game. That's the power of the narrative of this game. This was a game that a lot of people didn't play because it was a comic book game, in quotes, that they missed out on this awesome story. It was just so well written, so well directed, produced, and the combat was flawless. Like, I had such a great time with this game. It could very easily be my number one. It just isn't. But it could easily be my game of the year. But that's my number 2.
Excellent. I think we might have the same number 2 and number 1.
Probably.
But the question is, are they in the same order?
Oh, we definitely have the same number 2 and number 1. Yeah, they're in the same order for sure.
Yeah, they totally are. So my number 2 is also Marvel Spider-Man. This game was just a joy to play. And I think that's the biggest thing about it is I just had fun playing this game. The combat was great. The traversal was amazing. It had a good story. The music was wonderful. The voice acting was great. It was beautiful. Like, this game was just, it checked the boxes, right? It was a good time to play. And even, and I'm not counting this when I count it as my favorite game of the year, even the DLC for the game, like, it came out, they said, here's what the plan is. Here's when it's going to come out. Everything's going to be out by X date. And they hit it all. Like, everything is out. Like, you have the complete experience by now. Like, everything you're going to get is out. And I think that was kind of something that was awesome, that we get all these DLC packages announced when you just don't know what's going to happen and when it's going to come. And they were like, hey, here's exactly what it's going to be. Here's exactly when they're coming out. Here's exactly when it'll be done by. So everything about this game just ticked the boxes. And I think for the fact that they had so much pressure on them to try to hit this out of the park, and then they did. And I think that's something to be commended. So Marvel Spider-Man, easy number 2 game. Finishing up the DLC right now, loving the DLC, but just that base core gameplay, really had a wonderful time with it. And in planning, depending on how things go and depending on how early January goes, maybe even to do a second playthrough of Marvel Spider-Man. So we'll see how that goes. And finally, Josh, what was your number 1 favorite game of the year?
It was, I'm realizing now, Paul Calico had a typo. It's God of War, not Dad of War. It just came to me. Yeah, my number 1 game of the year was God of War, a game that I will most certainly have a second playthrough of. And I intentionally did not go back to do everything because we had so many games to play. What an incredible story. What incredible boss fights. What incredible side stories, what incredible spoilery endings. And there's so much stuff that I don't even know that I'm missing yet because I have so many things that I can go back and do. And I know they're going to be challenging because I got to go fight Valkyries and I don't want to do that. But I know that there's so much more content left for me and I can still give it my game of the year because the regular content was so good. It was so enjoyable. And if we want to talk about good voice acting, it was incredible. The dialogue, the script for the dialogue, I know Kyle's in love with that one track, full game shot. Like, everything they did was groundbreaking, but also in a familiar way. Like, you didn't necessarily feel like you're playing a whole new game, even though you are. It's so familiar, this character. And like the moments when you get the Blades of Chaos and when you get these things, that's what they're called, right?
Spoilers.
Come on, the game has been out long enough.
It's been close to a year now, I guess.
Yeah. The moments when you get these things that are reminiscent of your past experiences with the game, it's not like you're just playing the new God of War. It's like you're playing every God of War. Like, you're living with this character you've grown with for 10 years. And they did it so well. It's not like just, like, I love the Halo games, but like, you don't have the same connection to Master Chief that you do with Kratos. And you live this devastation with him right from the beginning. And even though you don't spend too much time with his wife, you get this sense of like why this is important. Like they do such a great job at making you feel the way a guy who doesn't show feelings feels. Like it's great. And they show you his moments like to his son that if you're his son, you never see. So you're seeing like Kratos' like tender side and him fighting it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also see like his son will never see that.
Yep.
So it's like this crazy, like emotional tug of war. It was great. I really loved it. And that's my number one game of the year.
And my number one game of the year, favorite game of the year,
Favorite.
probably surprising no one, also is God of War. So I think you pretty much hit almost everything right on the head. I think we talk a lot, or we as in people who like games talk a lot about wanting something quote unquote different, or for games to evolve, right? That Call of Duty is always the same thing every year, just with new maps, and that sports games are the same every year. I know Coach Mo gets upset when people say that, but they just tweak one or two things and otherwise they're always the same every year. Like, those are the things you regularly hear people talk about, that we want games to evolve. We want them to be different. We want them to take their past, push them into new directions and give us new experiences. And I think this God of War is like the perfect example of what you can do to take a franchise that has gotten maybe a little tired, maybe a little stale, and reinvent it into a way that pushes not only that particular IP forward, but really starts to push games forward in some ways, especially with, the cinematic camera that they use, how they tell the story, all of that really pushes things forward. Now, is it a perfect game? No. There are things with it that, I think obviously could have been tweaked, but I felt the game started a touch slow, but
Yes.
Once I started getting into it, I did not want to stop playing that game. Once it got going, that is all I wanted to do, was get home and play God of War. I would eat my meals at the television so I could finish them and push my plate to the side and play more God of War. Like, everything pulled me back to that game. And when I thought I got close to the end, I had this moment of, now I know there's a lot else to do in this world, but do I want to have this story end yet? And I think that, to me, that is the sign of a good game, a game that is, you become so invested in that you're like, well, do I want this? Do I want to put a bow on this yet? Do I want to wrap this up? And I think the best part about it too is that there are things that happen in that story that it's debatable as to whether the right decisions are made. There are things that happen that you're like, was that what we should have done? Is that how this should have gone? I don't know. I mean, it's what happened. It's the story they wanted to tell, and I think there's definitely been some articles written about some of the things and some debates about, what Kratos is actually teaching Atreus and all those good things. And I think that that's good, that it says, it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be this, or it doesn't have to be that. Like, they chose the story that they wanted to tell. And then we get to debate what did that story mean? Could it have been done in a different way, or could they have changed things to maybe serve a different story or a different perspective? Absolutely. But we get to now debate this one that they put out in front of us and talk about what this one told us.
Right.
And I think that's really, really cool. And I got to assume they're working on a sequel, right? Because there's no DLC. They've never said a word about DLC. And this game was ripe for possibilities with DLC. Like, it was like, when you look at how the game is set up, like, ripe for DLC, but we've heard nothing, So I really hope they're just hard at work on the next one. And I know that they definitely have said that there are plans for a next one and how it could go and how the story will progress. But yeah, God of War, super impressed. Enjoyed the previous God of War games from a combat perspective, because I thought it was fun. Really never cared about Kratos. And now I care about Kratos. So that's a thing, I guess.
Plus that end scene.
I know. After you go home. It's so good.
Boy.
It's so good. Okay. Last final thing. Obviously, those are not all of the games we played this year. Do you have any honorable mentions, any games that just missed out on your top 5 that you want to give a very quick shout out to, as we were running pretty darn long like we anticipated we would?
No, I think I could just leave it at Dead Cells as my honorable mention.
Okay. The one game I will just do a one honorable mention then too, even though I had like 7 written down. I'm just gonna say Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The only reason that it's not on my list is I just haven't put enough hours into it yet, would be my assumption.
Yeah, I could say the same about like Smash and Red Dead 2.
Right. Red Dead 2 haven't played enough, Smash haven't played enough. But for me, really, I think the one that would vie for a spot probably just based off the time I have played is AC Odyssey, and I just haven't gotten enough hours into it for it to make its way. So hey, those are our top 5 games of 2018. But before we leave you, we do want to give you a recommendation for a well-rounded life. Now, we are clearly a gaming podcast, but we just want to give you one recommendation, suggestion, thing we're kind of into right now that's helping us balance out all this gaming. Josh, what is a recommendation you have for the fine listeners for a well-rounded life?
So my recommendation, it's yet another Netflix show. Well, it's on Netflix. It's a sci-fi show, and it's called Happy, and it's with Christopher Maloney from, you probably know him from one of the Law and Orders. He was also in Wet Hot American Summer. He played the chef or the cook. And it is this not safe for children, violent, crazy, bad cop show. Not bad in a bad way, but like he's a bad cop. It's this story about Christopher Maloney. He's like this drug-addled, alcoholic detective who's a flunky, but he's a tough guy. He's like I can't think of who to compare him to. He's like if John McClane was like an alcoholic, but had like bullseye's aim. He's like a great shot. You find out, well, I won't spoil anything that happens, but something happens. He gets knocked out and he starts seeing an imaginary flying horse. It's animated. It was voiced by Patton Oswalt. And it's a story that basically it's a comedy, an action comedy. It's really bonkers. If you just have a minute to just check out the first episode, you'll know right away if you're in or you're out. But I don't want to spoil anything about it. But it's dark, it's quirky, you'll see it and you'll be like, I can't believe they were able to air this on the Sci-Fi Channel. But I give it a high recommendation. It's funny and action-y. It's very
awesome.
Good.
And what was the name of it again?
Happy
on
Happy on Netflix. I think season 2 will be on Sci-Fi this year, but season 1 is on Netflix.
Awesome. Also, just, I expect you to keep up with all of the 90 movies Netflix is planning on releasing next year.
All of them?
Yeah, they said they're going to release 90 movies next year. So anyway,
I probably won't watch all of them.
My recommendation, also a Netflix recommendation, as everyone probably knows, I really like food. I really like cooking and cooking shows. And it is a show called The Final Table, which is on Netflix. It is a cooking competition, which involves folks in cooking in teams of 2. And they're some of the best chefs in the world, and legitimately some of the best chefs in the world. And each episode, they have to tackle a cuisine of a specific country. And basically, the judges say, okay, for the first round, you are going to make this very specific dish from our country. And for example, the first episode is about Mexico, and the dish that they choose to have them make is tacos. So the judges pick something that is what they believe like a marquee or representative dish of their country. And the thing that I find most interesting and fascinating about this, and I don't know why it surprised me, but it really did, and it continues to surprise me on every episode, and I just have a couple left, is that you think about, okay, episode 1, Mexico, make tacos. The number of chefs who are like, I've never had a taco before, because the chefs are from all over the world. Wow. And I had never contemplated that fact as, in the United States, in a lot of ways, we talk about the melting pot and all those other things. Like, we have a lot of different foods from a lot of different countries around the world are very represented here. But if you are a chef from Japan or Singapore, tacos might not be a thing. So I really was just blown away by that fact. Like, a couple of the chefs had never eaten tacos before. One of them the last time they had a taco was like 1986, Wow. So it's just really a mind-blowing way to think of like, okay, you're a chef. You have to make this food that is like the preeminent food of this country, and you've never had it before, and you have 1 hour. Good luck. So it's just really interesting. It's a cool show. If you're interested in cooking shows, I highly recommend The Final Table on Netflix. Josh, what do you say we wrap this show up?
Let's do that. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Remember, you can find us on social media at BoardWithVG. Make sure you're using that hashtag BoardWithVG. We're on Facebook.com/BoardWithVG. And of course, BoardWithVG@gmail.com. Send us your inquiries, please. You can find me. Okay, so we got our gaming night coming up. No, it already happened. I hope
it already happened.
I hope it was great. Man, traveling around in time is confusing. Hopefully you found me on PlayStation Network at Why So Serious. That's SIRRIUS. You can find me there on Xbox as well. I'm at Josh Bones on Twitter, and just keep checking our Instagram out and supporting us. We appreciate you guys commenting and also using that hashtag. Kyle, where can they find you, sir?
So you can find me at all the usual places, being Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. As a brief update, as we roll out to the end of 2018 here and roll into 2019, due to popular demand, the Metafall contest will be coming back in early 2019, but it's going to be named more appropriately Meta Spring. So yes, with all of the very interesting games coming out in the first quarter/third of 2019, we wanted to roll this contest back out. So we will be talking about that in early January. And if you have specific titles you think should be included in, we're going to shoot for 10 games that folks should try to guess the Metacritic score for. Let us know. What are games you think would be good to include on the list? We, again, want to try to have a wide variety of games, not just the things that Josh and I are interested in, but things that represent the gaming industry as a whole. Let us know. These shouldn't be things that we think are just going to score highly, but maybe we're really interested in how they're going to score. Examples might be Crackdown 3 and Days Gone. So both games that I'm really interested to see how these things are going to go, and I think it's going to make the guessing a little more fun. So again, Meta Spring coming early 2019. If you have games that we think should be included, the plan I think is to run it through right now, probably the end of April, because I don't think we have a ton of May releases at this point. So let us know your thoughts. Finally, if you have any suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on the social media. Thank you all for what was a wonderful 2018 for Board with Video Games. We really appreciate you listening, talking with us, interacting with us, sharing some of your valuable time with us. We definitely don't take it for granted, and we are planning a very stellar 2019 for you. So as we roll out and close up shop on 2018, remember everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.